Hi everybody, the new trailer for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse just dropped, and we're going to break down every little frame for Easter eggs. As always, possible spoilers for the movie and a few comic books are ahead. The trailer begins with Peter Parker narrating, the same way the original Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie begins.
Who am I? You sure you want to know?
This is a great way to tell the audience that this story is going to be both familiar and new. Then we see several scenes from the Raimi movies, including the train rescue from Spider-Man 2, #greatest scene in any Spider-Man movie, and the iconic upside-down kiss from Spider-Man 3. Just kidding. There's also a fancy dinner with Mary Jane interrupted by a car smashing through a window, a direct play on this scene from Spider-Man 2. And I love this shot, which is made to look both like a comic panel and a spider's web. A couple panels I'd like to call attention to. Here's Spider-Man kicking what appears to be the end of the Scorpion's tail, at least the version of the Scorpion that we'll see later in the trailer. And this section is a play on this iconic Spider-Man image. And finally, we see Spidey in the clutches of some villain, and I'm gonna guess that this is the giant version of the Lizard from the Amazing Spider-Man film. If you look closely all over the trailer, you'll see tiny dots. These are mimicking Ben-Day dots, which are an optical illusion used to color comics for decades. Another way this movie is like a comic book come to life are the onomatopoeia sound effects, like boom and thwip. This is an actual comic book, Amazing Spider-Man number 186. You'll notice the villain in this issue is the Chameleon. He's the first villain Spidey ever faced, unless you count his own hubris and crushing guilt. The Chameleon is a master of disguise and doesn't appear in this trailer. Or does he? Spider-Man did once have his own cereal, but for some reason it wasn't called Spideyos. It was just called Spider-Man cereal. The Christmas album could be a reference to the real-life, extremely ridiculous record, Spider-Man, Rock Reflections of a Superhero.
Somebody call me Peter Parker before I go insane.
And I also love the fake, kinda Deadpool-esque song titles from his Christmas album, including Silent Night You're Welcome, and it's beginning to look a lot like a non-denominational holiday. I guess he's taking sides on the war on Christmas. Just kidding, time to fire up the comments. When we see the shift between dimensions, the color effect is the same we see later with the particle accelerator, which caused the spider heroes to hop between universes. I also love little details, like how the cop cars say NYPD in the familiar universe, but PDNY in the new universe. This new Spider-Man is named Miles Morales. He's an African-American Puerto Rican high schooler living in Brooklyn, and he originally debuted in the offshoot Ultimates universe, where he took up the mantle of Spider-Man after Peter Parker's death. But now he exists in the real Marvel Comics universe. In the original Spider-Verse comic, a supervillain named Morlun tries to kill all these different spider totems in various dimensions, and this movie looks like it's straying pretty hard from that concept. Instead, this movie's villain appears to be Wilson Fisk. It seems like he's involved with a super collider that breaks down the barriers between dimensions. However, this kind of super science seems a little out of his wheelhouse, so I'm gonna guess he's partnering with Norman Osborn, because later in the trailer, we see what looks like the Ultimates version of Green Goblin. I love this shot, where the two spider people are sensing each other's spider sense. Notice how the entire world turns transparent. Now, we've seen this before in the comics, but we've never seen spider sense portrayed so well visually in the movies. And did you notice how much Greek food costs in Miles' universe? It's not an Easter egg, I just think that's outrageous. Now let's speculate a little about the plot of this movie. The trailer's cut to make you think that Miles is already Spider-Man when the particle accelerator opens, but I don't think that's the case. I think the accelerator gives him his powers. Afterwards, Peter enters his dimension and they have some wacky training fun. This explains why Miles wears a low-rent costume in the scenes with Peter, but his look becomes more comic accurate later on. And from the trailer, it seems like Miles is tied to the universe's disruption. I think that's why you see his hands coursing with energy here. As more spider people pour into his dimension, the fabric of reality starts to bend, and only Miles can fix it. Then we get the big screen debut of Spider-Gwen. She's an alternate universe version of Gwen Stacy. Yes, that Gwen Stacy. In her world, she got spider powers and Peter is the one who died. She also plays in a band called the Mary Janes alongside an alternate version of Mary Jane Watson. We also meet three other spider characters who general audiences may not be familiar with. There's Spider-Man Noir from a gritty comic book universe set in 1933. This anime character is Penny Parker, who pilots the SPDR robot. And dear God, I can't believe I get to see this character in a movie. Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider-Ham. Matt Singer was right. This is the best time to be a Spider-Man fan. And all these spider people gather in some kind of spider lair along with Aunt May? Guys, look, I'll be honest. I have no idea what's going on here. Is this lab a spot between realities? Does this universe's Aunt May have her own secret Spider-Man lab? Let me know what you think this is in the comments. There is one clue I think is interesting in this room, In the background, there's a poster of Spider-Man that is signed to my biggest fan, Spider-Man. So this layer could belong to some interdimensional uber fan of the hero. And the photo of Mary Jane that Peter looks at lovingly later on also appears to be in this place as well. We did spot this suit, which looks like a variation of the Secret War Spider-Man costume. On this wall, you can see a chart of the Kingpin's organization. There's Hammerhead, the Rose, who was Kingpin's son Richard in the comics, Tombstone, longtime foes the Enforcers, and this guy, who I think is Hobie Brown, aka the Prowler. We get a better look at him later in the trailer chasing down Spider-Man. In the Ultimate Comics line, the Prowler is named Aaron Davis, uncle of Miles Morales. Donald Glover played a variation of this character in Spider-Man Homecoming. Then we get the Spider People fighting Tombstone and the Scorpion in what I'm guessing is an old lady's house, judging by the slipcovers on the sofas. My guess is that this is Aunt May's house, since she appears earlier in the trailer. Later in the trailer, we get a better look at Miles' full suit, very similar to his costume in the comics. And one small detail that I love, that the Spider looks like a tag, complete with runny paint. And in the final scene of the trailer, the Spider crew are trying to hide from who I'm going to guess is Genki Lee, Miles' best friend. Ned from Spider-Man Homecoming was in part based on Genki. If you notice, his room is filled with Spider-Man memorabilia and comics. So I'm wondering, is Spider-Man fictional in this universe? Is Genki a Spider-Man expert that they seek out for his help? I don't know, what do you guys think of the Spider-Verse trailer? Do you like it, or do you think the only Spider-Man movie should be in the MCU? Please let me know in the comments. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.